Hi guys! So if you read this title and you clicked on this video, you probably know what we're going to talk about in this video. Today I thought I would share with you my reasons to why I think social media is kind of toxic. Before I get further on with why I think it's so toxic, I do realize that there are many different reasons to why social media is a good thing. For example, it could be really useful to connect with people. It could also be very useful for activism, amongst many things. But there are still many negative factors associated with social media. But I guess you know that all things do have pros and cons to it. My reason for doing this video is not to tell you that social media is a bad thing and you should stop using it. That is 100% not what I'm trying to say, just because I do use social media myself. My purpose for this video is to give you some reasons to why you should probably scale down some of the hours you spend on social media. Just because I know, as a fellow teenager, young adult, I do realize how big of a part social media does play in our lives. I also really wanted to do this video just because this past summer and currently right now, I actually haven't been on social media that often. I do go on social media a couple times a day, but I have scaled down the amount of time I spend on social media and I've noticed a huge change in my life. So this is one of the reasons to why I decided to do this video, to share with you why I think social media is kind of toxic for your life and how spending a little bit less time on social media can make a huge difference in your life in a positive way. Before I start telling you the reasons to why I think social media is toxic, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd really love it if you did, and let's get into this video. My first reason to why I think social media is toxic is because social media results in peer pressure and a decrease in self-love and confidence. Social media gives us the opportunity to observe the lives of millions of people. Once we see other people, it is a common human trait to compare ourselves to them. And once we compare ourselves to them, we might see something we like in them, and then that might force us to see something we don't like about ourselves, which ultimately leads us to have the desire to want to be like them. When we try to be like someone else or copy what someone else is doing, it's basically saying that we're not accepting ourselves for who we are. And that's so bad because we were born to be our own person. We weren't born to be like someone else. When we try to change ourselves to be like someone else, sometimes it can actually hurt us physically, mentally, or psychologically. So I personally don't think it's worth it to put yourself through that kind of pain just to be like someone who you may think is the ideal image. Something that really fits into this point right here is body image. The way body image fits into social media is, in my opinion, the most toxic thing out there. There's so many people out there showing their bodies and their frames, and that's fine. I totally support that as body confidence within that individual who's posting that photo. But there comes a point when there's going to be someone who's looking at the photo who will think that body figure is the ideal figure. That might lead them to change their diet, for example, just so they can achieve that ideal figure and look. That could be very harmful for that individual. And that brings me back to my point where social media results in peer pressure because they might make an individual want to do something, to change themselves, which will just unfortunately take a hit at your self-love and self-confidence. My next point is that a lot of the times, social media is just for show or display. Think about it. When you post, you filter what you post. You analyze what you post of yourself. So my question is, how real is it? How much is fake? A lot of the times you're just painting a picture for someone to see, especially Instagram. When I really think about it, the decision to post something about yourself is because you want to show someone what you're doing. In a sense, to me, it's kind of like you want to prove yourself to someone, proving the fact that you're having fun, proving the fact that you have a life, or whatever. For example, if someone were to post a picture, it could look like they're having the time of their life, just living their life to the fullest. Meanwhile, they could have smiled for like 5 seconds just to take the photo. That photo only captures what they look like in that split second. The rest of the time, they could be completely miserable or depressed, and you would never know. And that kind of leads to my next point, where interpretations are subjective. A post, picture, or comment can be interpreted in so many different ways. The person posting it can mean one thing, but the person seeing it can think a different thing. I really want to stress that interpretations are subjective because everybody thinks a different thing. And what is intended is not always interpreted that same way, which causes a lot of unnecessary drama. My next point is that it's a tendency to define your social status through likes, comments, and amount of followers, which is detrimental to your mental health. It's a natural instinct for a lot of us as human beings who use social media to count the number of followers we have, or the number of likes we get, or the number of comments we get. And a lot of the times we associate those numbers with the amount of friends we have or popularity. So sometimes when you see someone with a lot of followers, likes, or comments, that could affect you emotionally, just because once you see that high number and you look at your own numbers, you might see that your numbers are significantly lower, and there's a chance that you might think yourself that you are not as popular as them, or you don't have as much friends stresses them. Picking out those little details actually hurts yourself more than you realize. You're basically putting your own interpretation to random numbers you see. Followers, likes, comments, those are just numbers. Sure, it might say that you're a little bit more popular, but that doesn't really define the amount of friends you have. I can think of a couple of people who have a couple thousand followers, but they're not famous. That doesn't mean that they have that many friends, because I can assure you, they themselves are probably not close with like 3,000 people in their life. Another reason why I think social media is toxic is because it makes you question your life or things in your life that you never doubted before. This could be so hurtful to you on an emotional level. I think the best way to explain this is through an example. You see someone having the time of their life, having fun on a cottage or something, and you're just stuck at home doing nothing. That might make you think that your life is boring in comparison to theirs, which brings me back to an earlier point that I stated before, when a picture can say so many things from what it actually is. Yes, I understand that it's hard to avoid those because sometimes when you're just on social media, you see it. And it's hard to not see it unless you actually quit all of social media. I guess what I'm trying to say, by limiting your time on social media, you might not see these posts. And not seeing it will save you from dwelling on it and questioning your own life. Another reason why social media is toxic is because everything you share becomes so impersonal. Once you post something, everybody wants to know the details. People are just naturally that curious, and we can't help that. This definitely comes into play in a relationship or when you're dating someone. All of a sudden, it's just not you and your significant other in that relationship. It becomes you, your significant other, and everybody else. Once you share that with someone else, there's a possibility where it could head towards the direction where your relationship might just be for show. You might become a spectacle, and it's hard to distinguish what is real from what is for show. I'm not saying this happens to everyone, but it could happen. This point doesn't only apply to relationships. I just think that relationships is the best example for this point, but this point can also apply to other things in your life. For example, an event. Maybe you just want to keep this event between yourself and your family. You might just want to keep it private. I just feel like that stuff is just more sentimental and just means so much more when you don't share it publicly. Another reason why you should limit your time on social media is because social media wastes so much of your time. That good amount of time could be spent doing something more productive or something more enjoyable. I'm pretty sure there's something more enjoyable in your life to do other than spending your time scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through TikTok. When you think about it, it's kind of a distraction because we constantly want to know what's going on. And that makes us want to lean towards going onto social media and spending time there just to find out what's happening. And when you consider and realize your actions, we are not only scrolling through social media just because we're bored. We do it despite the situation, whether we're bored or busy in that matter. Social media is also toxic because it decreases person-to-person interaction. I guess this doesn't really apply to long distance friendships or relationships because you have no other choice than to go onto social media just to connect with each other. But this definitely applies to people around you. Like if you're geographically nearby each other and you choose not to see each other face to face, how can you create a meaningful relationship that way? It's challenging. Personally, I feel like texting can only do so much. It's talking where progress really happens. My last reason to why I think social media is toxic is because it's addicting. Once you start, it's difficult to stop or decrease the amount of time you spend on social media. A clear example of this is TikTok. How many times have you heard someone say they just spend hours scrolling on TikTok? I've heard that at least 10 times, and that's why I'm saying once you start with it, it's hard to stop. I guess this is kind of like a concluding point because once you start and you become addicted to it, all the points I stated earlier just hits you. And I'm sure you can come to the conclusion on your own of how toxic that will be. Alright guys, that is the end of my very long list of reasons why social media is toxic for you. I just want to repeat the fact that I'm not telling you to stop using social media because there are so many good qualities about it. I'm just trying to say to decrease the amount of time you spend on it because you could see a positive change in your life once you do. Other than that, I hope you find this video interesting and helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give my video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will catch you in the next video. Later!
If it's fine by you, I'll take the passenger seat. We can drive around to the sky and see meet. If it's fine by you, I'll take the passenger seat.